All right, today we're talking about drones, but not the kind that you use to spy on your neighbors who you suspect have been stealing your Harry Potter loot crates off of your front porch. We're talking about drones and how you can use them in your guitar playing. And essentially what a drone note is kind of one note that you keep coming back to over and over again to create kind of a tonal atmosphere. And what we're going to do to demonstrate this is to start using two-note chords, dyads, in the key of E minor, and then more extended chords to kind of show how you can kind of use a drone note to tie together a certain kind of sound, if that's what you're going for. So basically the drone that we're going to use is going to be E. And we're going to focus on the low E string. So we're going to hear a lot of this low open E string, and we're going to add this to a bunch of different chords in the key of E minor, is what we're going to be using as an example. So if you've seen any of the other videos on how to make chords out of a scale, which I'll link you to, we know that the chords of E minor are the same as the chords of G major, where if you think of the G major scale, the 1, 4, 5 become major chords, the 2 through 6 become minor chords, and the 7 becomes a diminished chord. So the chords in G major would be G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and G major again. So what we're going to do is we're going to root all those chords on the A string. We're going to add the low string on like underneath it to kind of give that tonal atmosphere we were talking about. We're going to drone it out. So we're going to start with the second note on the A string. Okay, this is a B. So if we just take a root note and then add its third, its minor third if it's a minor chord and its major third if it's a major chord, we would end up with a B and a D. Okay, so 2A and open D. But what we're going to do before that, we're going to hit the open E string first. We can play it as a chord, those lowest three notes here, or we can play it one at a time. E, 2A, D. Okay, now the next note, if B, again, is going to be in the key of E minor, the next note in that key is going to be C, the third fret on the A string. Now this is going to be a major chord, so it has a major third. The way to find a major third if you're on the A string is just go down to the D string and back it off a fret. So I have 3A and 2D. Okay, so right there, the A and the D string together give me a piece of the C major chord. Now I can still drone that low E note underneath it. Now again, this is actually giving me two E's and a C. Okay? But that doesn't really change the makeup of what this chord is. We're just kind of adding a very E-ish vibe to this C chord. So far we're droning the E, and then the B minor, then the E and the C major. The next note in that key is D, the 5th fret. It's a major chord, D major. So we're gonna have a D in its major third. So we can start with the B minor, C major, D major, and then we get to the octave E, which is the 7th fret on the A string, and this is going to be a minor chord, so we do the minor third here. Again, if you're on the A string, the way to get to a minor third is down a string, back 2 frets. That's why when we were on the B, the minor third was down a string, back 2 frets. It gave us an open D string, all right? So we've got B minor, C major, D major, E minor. All right. All right, now, the next note we're going to do is the F sharp, the 9th fret. Now this is where that diminished chord comes in. So if we were to put a chord on here, it would look like this, but we just want to grab its third. And even though it's not a minor chord, it has a minor third. So same thing with the E minor. We can almost kind of think of this as like an F sharp minor for the purposes of our root and our third, even though it ends up being a diminished chord. So it's just open E, 9A, 7D. And then we go to the major chord, G, which is the 10th fret. There's a G, and it's a major third, a G and a B. And then we end up on an A, open 12, 10, A minor. And then that brings us right back to where we started with the B minor, an octave higher. So we can play these in order with the B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp minor, even though it's diminished, G major, A minor, and B minor. And we can start combining these in a lot of different patterns. You can get really cool sounds out of it, kind of by making them a progression. So we can start skipping around. Like maybe let's start with the E minor to really establish that we're in the key of E minor, going for like a minor thing. Maybe go to the C, D, E minor, to C, and because I'm always hammering home on that low E string, I'm not even thinking about how that E is adding to the chords I'm making, what different chords there are. I'm just going through what's essentially kind of like a chord scale, a scale of chords, B, C, D, E, and then getting that lowness to kind of glue everything together. And because I'm choosing to work around the E minor scale, I'm getting a very dark, kind of a cool sound from it, okay? Now, the next step that we can do to kind of expand upon this is to take bigger chord voicings. Instead of just using the lowest 3 strings, we can flesh those chords out. So when I said this is the B minor, we can take the beginnings of like a minor bar chord, right? So 2A, 4D, 4G, 4B. Now, for all these, I'm gonna leave the high E string open because, again, the low E and the high E string can kind of work together to kind of create that tonal atmosphere, but now I'm getting a fuller, thicker sound. So I've got the low and the high E strings kind of working together for me. And then I can do the same thing with just like regular chords. We could do like a C major chord, like this, or this, but I'm gonna use extended chords. So in the key of G, or the key of E minor, the C would become a C major 7, which the voicing we're gonna use is gonna be 3A, 5D, 4G, 5B, and then remember, on the bottom of the top, I've got E's kind of sandwiching this C major 7 chord. So it's a very E-ish C major 7. And again, I start with the B minor, C major 7, it'd be D7, okay? D7 is a 5A, 7D, 5G, and 7B. Again, the outsides are still E and E. The E minor, I'm gonna just make that same thing we did on the B, but now I'm gonna be on the 7th fret. So if we just take those first 4 chords, B minor, C major 7, D7, E minor. Because I'm droning the low and the high E strings, it sounds a little bit different than just B minor, C major 7, D7, E. I mean, I'm still getting the essence of that, but it's so much more dramatic. And also, too, in this key, all the open strings are in there. So if you want to maybe start eliminating some of the pieces of these chords, like let's take this B minor again for an example. Let's take your pinky up, and now the G string is going to be open. I'm getting a bigger, more open sound. I can leave a G. I'm going to leave the G string open for all these voicings. What I'm doing now is I'm kind of adding a G drone within these E kind of sandwiched low and high strings. And now I'm getting even more of like an E minor vibe because, again, G is a note in the chord E minor. So maybe to the D7, E minor. This one right here is that F sharp. That's where that diminished chord comes from. We're going to do a minor 7 flat 5 voicing for this example. 9A, 10D, 9G, 10B. Into the G, which is the same thing I did on the C. You can make it a G major 7, just like the C. That's going to bring us all the way back to A minor. And then we can kind of hit that B again if we want. Okay, so the chord scale starting on the B would be B minor, and I'll leave that G string open for this one. And this is just in order. And it sounds more dramatic. It sounds less like a chord scale. It almost sounds cool. And we're just literally playing them in order. There's kind of really no creativity going on here. And that's the beauty of using drone notes to kind of supplement things that maybe you already know how to play and just kind of give it a different flavor. So once you start mixing and matching them, then you can get like really cool maybe ideas going. So we'll start on the C to an E minor, F sharp, B. again, I was just kind of randomly going through those chords, and you can kind of do this with really any string. Like if you wanted to do the same thing with A, if you wanted to drone A, start using the chords of A minor. So maybe you start with this F right here. This would be an F major. Do a G, G major, F major with an A, G major with an A minor with an A. Thinking of the intervals within the chords, even if it's just like a root note and it's minor third, it's major third, or whatever, really kind of is a super important thing I try to stress in a lot of these lessons because it really just helps you see the fretboard in what I think is a more efficient way. So definitely try experimenting with some of these drone note techniques. You can do the same thing if you want to tune down to drop D. A lot of people do that because then you can kind of use get a D minor thing going a little bit easier. And you can always use a capo if you want to try to use a drone note over maybe chords that are in a different key. Because like let's say instead of doing something in E minor, I want to do something in F sharp minor. There's no F sharp string in standard tuning. So maybe you just like pop a capo on the 2nd fret and do the same thing that you're doing with the E minor chords. So anyways, that's just one way to use drone notes to kind of enhance your playing and songwriting. And if you have any questions, please hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, the comment section, or the website, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks a lot.